What is going on with Curve Finance? Why is the CRV token going up? Who's buying here? Who's selling here? What are the tokenomics? What's demand versus supply? Let's try to figure out what's actually driving the price and see whether or not it still makes sense to buy CRV right now. So we're currently at $1.22. We are up 125% this week alone. But the CRV token is not without drama. Since listing on CoinMarketCap, it actually went down by more than 90%. And so I've covered Curve Finance regularly on this channel as well. And there was indeed a lot of drama. There was a hack of the platform and there was one of the founders that borrowed heavily against the token. So that's this guy over here. His name is Michael Egorov. He can also look a bit more serious. And he deposited a ton of CRV tokens on the borrowing and lending platform Aave to then borrow stablecoins against this to then buy this house over here. If he had sold the CRV tokens directly on chain, the price would have plummeted. But because he only used it as collateral for a loan, the price was pretty much unaffected, unless it of course hits a threshold where then a forced liquidation happens. We were very close to such a liquidation. In the end, it didn't happen because Michael made some over-the-counter deals with various venture capitalists, but still, it was a pretty risky time. All of this has been resolved, but still subsequently the price tended to go down. Now what we see over here is CRV relative to Bitcoin. And since March of 2021 up until the middle of November 2024, CRV underperformed BTC by 93%. And now things tend to be turning around. What is going on here? Why did Curve Finance suddenly outperform Bitcoin by almost 300%? One supporting fact is the supply dynamics. So CRV was very inflationary in the past. And yes, the supply still increases, but at a much slower rate. We are now at 2.2 billion CRV tokens, and this will grow by roughly 10% per annum now. In the early days, when we were still at 234 million, we saw how the supply almost 4x'd within a year. That's of course not good for the price, at least relatively speaking to Bitcoin. Now, what is causing this current rally, right? We don't see the supply expanding that quickly anymore. Do we now have more usage of the DeFi platform? Let's have a look at the on-chain metrics. What we see on the left is the US dollar trading volume on Curve since September 2nd. There is slight growth here, but it's not phenomenal. I'd argue most of that growth is probably simply because crypto prices in general went up, right? This is US dollar denominated. So the left side is trading volume, the right side is deposited capital. Very similar picture. A lot of volatility, not really clearly visible whether or not there's growth. Now you can lock up your CRV and get more CRV tokens in the future. That's called staking, and that artificially suppresses the supply on the market, potentially improving the price. That's called staking. It artificially suppresses the liquid supply, thus supporting the price. There are now more than 920 million CRV tokens locked and staked. That's almost half of the entire supply. And still, even though all of that supply got locked up, the price didn't really outperform. And here's probably why. Have a look at DeFi Llama at the total value locked off curve. This is not the chart we want to see. Of course, we have seen a lot of adoption during DeFi summer, but since the implosion, we haven't seen how the protocol picked up again. The general market did much better. So this is all of total value locked across all chains, across all DeFi protocols. We are very close to all-time highs again. So all of that recovery that we have seen in other protocols, it did not happen for Curve Finance. Now let's have a look at who's currently driving the prices. Who's buying here, who's selling here. Now not all the information is 100% transparent, unfortunately, because there is quite a bit of trading volume on the centralized exchanges as well. And we don't really have insight in how much of that supply is liquid or simply just in cold storage. Have a look at this. Most trading volume happens currently on Binance, on Gate.io and on OKX. And there's also trading on the perpetual futures market. So that's additional leverage on the price, again, dominated by Binance. But nevertheless, let's have a look at the holders on chain. There's currently 88,000 such holders on Ethereum. The token is also available on other chains, but of course, most capital is on ETH. What we've got over here is the number of holders with very small amounts of CRV versus larger amounts. So on the left, we see the number of wallets that have only 0.1 Curve token. So at the current price, that's 12 cents of the token. It's not 88,000 holders, but it's close to that. It's 71,000 holders. Now for the chart in the middle, we have a minimum holding of 100 tokens. So that's $122. It's still small retail. It's still play money. But you can see how there's only 28,000 such holders. So more than 2/3 of holders on chain have less than $122 worth of the token. Now on the right, we see something one could consider the serious investor. That's now 10,000 tokens, or at the current price, $12,000 worth of the token. And this tends to grow very consistently over time. Now again, isn't this surprising? There are all those investors. The investor base is growing over time, yet CRV underperformed despite also all of the growing staking. So really the tokenomics were the issue. Really the supply expansion was too fast. A 4x in a single year in more supply has to depress the price, even though we see all of those new investors, even though we see all of that staking. But again, the supply expansion isn't that much of an issue anymore. The tokenomics are much more favorable. Relatively speaking, we see way less CRV now hitting the market compared to the early days. And so the number of new users over time on chain is also increasing. This is just the last month. We've seen a high on the 4th of December. We can ignore this latest data point because today isn't yet over. And again, as so often, we can see how attention moves in waves. And of course, when the attention is high, when there's a lot of buyers and sellers, that also tends to mean that the price is relatively speaking elevated. You want to buy when nobody is looking at the token, when the number of buyers and sellers is very low, and you want to potentially take profit when it's high. Now, crypto as a whole is currently expanding very, very quickly. What we've got behind me is the stablecoin market cap. And this is a 3-year chart, so it starts in July 2021. And we peaked in the stablecoin market cap in April of 2022. Over here, what happened was the Terra Luna collapse. So this is when Anchor protocol went bust. This is when UST depegged. The market as a whole shrunk, money was flowing out of crypto, and this is also where FTX collapsed. And then we saw the turnaround in October of last year. Now money is flowing into crypto again, and that's recently accelerating. The stablecoin market cap going up means, of course, that money is flowing from fiat into crypto, and that of course means that prices across all of the crypto space should continue to rise. I really like this chart because it has very little volatility. We can see the trend very clearly. In the short term though, we might be slightly heated. What we've got over here is again a stablecoin market cap chart, but this time that's not in US dollars. This time it's relative to the entire crypto market. So you might have heard of the Bitcoin dominance chart, right? How much of all of crypto is currently in Bitcoin? That's, by the way, currently at roughly 60%. It tends to peak at around 70%. What we see over here is the stablecoin dominance. So how much of all of crypto is currently in the stablecoins? And there is a strong inverse correlation between this and crypto prices. So when the stablecoin dominance is high, crypto prices are low. And when the stablecoin dominance is low, crypto prices are high. And we seem like, at least temporarily, to hit some potential floor here, which might mean that some cryptocurrencies might see local tops. That being said, especially in the last few days, we do see how the altcoins tend to outperform the rest of crypto. So this is the others dominance. So this is the cryptocurrency market cap that's not in the top 10. And this did go up since beginning of November to today by 23%. It appears as if there is some kind of altcoin rotation happening. At least we see the beginnings of it. And so what was the best performer across all of the altcoins in the last week? It's Virtual protocol. Virtual is a launchpad of AI agents on the base chain, and it almost tripled in the last week. This is the long-term chart, very impressive. And the big question is, how can we buy something like Virtual when it's not up there, but when it's somewhere down here? My answer to this question is wallet tracking. It's trying to figure out what are other smart investors doing? What are insiders doing? What are people doing that move prices? What are people doing that tended to make the right calls in the past? And so it's always nice to see what is the smart money doing, what is the not so smart money doing. For example, this over here. This is an alert that BitBoy Crypto sold virtual tokens at 1.4 cents. We don't have the alerts where he bought this, so maybe he got some allocation because he's an influencer, but he sold his allocation. He did this multiple times, by the way. And again, what he sold subsequently went up by more than 10,000%. And so yeah, BitBoy Crypto, in my opinion, is pretty much the Jim Cramer of crypto. It doesn't make sense to copy trade him, but it's interesting to see what he's doing. There are other people though that are worth copy trading. For example, over here, we've got Crypto Gains that bought the virtual token. token. That was at 5.8 cents. So since then, the price went up by 2,500%. Who is CryptoGains? It's this influencer here. He tends to buy tokens relatively early, and he tends to also be very public about his purchases, which can generate, of course, a lot of attention and can bring in more investors, pushing up the price further. So he does very risky plays regularly. He's got 138,000 subscribers. And so how do we get these buy and sell signals? It's through finding the right wallets first and foremost, right? It's doing some on-chain analytics to figure out those wallets. And it's subsequently by putting those wallets in a wallet tracker and get notifications whenever they buy and sell. So over here, we've got the wallets by CryptoGains that we are tracking. We've got 55 of his wallets. But then at a later point in time, we also see more people buying into the virtual token, the people that tend to deploy much more capital. For example, over here, we've got Kyle Chessy that bought $100,000 worth of the token, and that was at 48 cents. And so here is Kyle Chessy. He's got 137,000 subscribers. And since he bought, the price went up by 220%. We've got 12 of his wallets, and of course not every trade goes like this, but in general, right, I do believe it makes sense to follow the smart money. It is much better to follow the people that tend to make profit compared to simply just picking random tokens in a list. And so I like this approach that much that I made 8 dedicated tutorial videos just on this wallet tracking topic. They are over here. It's how to find various influencer wallets. It's how to track those influencers, and it's also about how to interpret the signals that we get from the tracking. It's all part of the premium membership of this channel that's down below, thebitcoinstray.com. It's not just wallet tracking that we do, it's also risk mitigation, portfolio diversification, backtesting. There's more than 100 tutorial videos in total in premium. Once we've got a signal, we of course also have to discuss when should we buy, when should we sell. That's why we've got our dedicated chats for the individual altcoins as well. So feel free to check it out. It's currently $165 per month. There's also a 1-week money back guarantee. So in case you don't like premium, in case you don't learn anything, just message me within the first 7 days and I will refund you 100%. There's really zero risk for you. Now, how much more upside potential is there for Curve Finance right now? Since the tokenomics improved, since there's continued accumulation, the usage of the DeFi platform doesn't go up. But if you just look at Curve Finance, at the CRV token as a fraction of all of crypto, how high could it go? One way to look at this is we look at Curve Finance's market cap relative to the rest of crypto. The metric I'm talking about is the CRV dominance. And that's currently at 0.04%. So 0.04% of all of crypto is currently Curve. And historically, we have been higher. Right? We have been at 0.13%. So if we see the old heights, if the price balloons similar to January of 2022, we could see an outperformance versus the rest of crypto by more than 200%. At that point though, probably the air will get somewhat thin. So it's all about risk versus reward. Currently the momentum is very bullish. I think one potential approach to hedge against the potential downside is a trailing stop loss, right? So as the price increases, you've got your stop loss, you can adjust that stop loss, and once the momentum turns around, right, then you want to get stopped out, then you want to sell and take that profit. If you got some value out of this video, feel free to subscribe. I publish videos regularly. A like would be very much appreciated as well. It helps the channel grow. See you in the next video or see you in premium. Cheers.